Hi everyone, welcome to Under the Gun. I am Jon Friedberg, and this is a very interesting week in poker. Two major things have happened. First of all, the November 9 has been determined, and I want to give a special congratulations to Mike Mizrachi, the grinder. In one of my shows coming up before the World Series, I was just talking about how he had been announced by some Florida newspaper as having major financial problems and facing 2 foreclosures and owing the IRS $400,000 in taxes. Well, he had an amazing World Series, his first really good World Series. He came out and won the 50K event right away, the Players Championship, and now he's also in the November 9. So what a performance from him. I want to give a very special congratulations to him. The other major thing that has happened in the poker world is the world's biggest douchebag has emerged. And that person is Spencer Bacchus. If any of you are following the poker legislation, HR 2267, this week is a very critical week. Annie Duke was actually had given a presentation in front of the members of the panel or Congress or whatever last week, and she did a very good job. And Representative Spencer Bacchus showed what a freaking idiot he is. I mean, he's strongly opposed to online gaming. He's comparing poker players to heroin addicts, and the guy is a puppet like I've never seen before. He doesn't read very well. Clearly, his presentation is not even coming from himself based on how it's written, but I really don't know what his motivation is, but man, the guy is really out to get poker players and, online gaming as a whole. Now, this week I mentioned Annie Duke was speaking in front of these folks in D.C. this week, last week. Well, Annie is my guest on the show this week, and I actually interviewed Annie just at the end of the World Series, so it was before she had a chance to speak in front of the panel for HR 2267. But I was able to ask her some pretty cool stuff about what she's been up to, about how the poker world has evolved, about whether or not this year is the Women in Poker, and some other stuff about what Annie is up to in her days lately. She is a very busy woman. But before I break into my Annie interview, let me just give a quick update on my Under the Gun challenge. All right, the World Series is over. I have finally had to have some time available to put in for my cash game challenge of winning $100,000 on UB. I am happy to say that I've been profitable since then. This month, which is basically for the most part over the last week, although I had some other scattered days that I might have played. I played about 18,000 hands this month of July, and as you can see in this chart, I got off to a great start. And only the last few sessions I've been running absolutely terribly, and I've given much of it back. In fact, at one point I was actually a loser, but I had a quick recovery towards the end there to finish at about $800 up for the month. So I'm way behind my pace of hitting $100,000, but I am learning a lot, and I do feel much more confident in my game. And aside from many streaks, I do feel like my profitability will continue to grow. And I do expect to have much more success in the coming months than I've had up until now. And the second part of my Under the Gun challenge leading up to the World Series was winning a seat into the main event on UB's step tournaments. Well, although I did not win a seat in the main event, I do have 2 Step 10 tickets, which now UB has sort of rolled the program into World Series of Poker Europe packages or WPT Legends of Poker packages at the Bike in LA. So I will be playing those Step 10s, trying to win a seat into the WPT Legends of Poker. That's a great tournament, and I will be updating you all on my progress with that as well. However, I still have not yet been able to play either of those tickets, but hopefully there will be some Step 10 tournaments rolling this week, and I will be able to take a shot or two. So with that said, let me bring on my guest today. This is my very first exclusive one-on-one interview. This is the first time I've just sat down with one other person. I'm excited that it's Annie Duke, and I know, again, this is in hindsight. I think, Annie, you did an awesome job on your presentation, and I hope that HR 2267 goes well for all of us. And Annie, welcome to the show. So Annie Duke, thank you so much for giving some of your time here.
Glad I could come. I've plied my children with candy over in the corner so we could talk.
Awesome.
Good mom.
So I want to ask you about the Tournament of Champions, the TOC
yes,
this year.
That was so awesome, by the way.
Well, what was it like? So you and I have been around poker a long time.
Yeah.
You've probably been around a few years longer than I have, but the game has changed so much.
So much, and we went back to old school poker. It was so great.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, was it sort of a much more sort of, I don't know how to refer to it, but like kind of an old school style where...
It was. I mean, the thing is that I think first of all, in the beginning, we were playing super deep stack, no ante, so I don't think most of the players didn't feel like they needed to get involved. There were some players who were kind of playing every pot. But mostly people just weren't really getting involved with no antes, which is very old school style, like, no antes in the pot, don't take any risks, why should you? But then when we got down to like 2 tables, there just wasn't a lot of screwing around with people because everybody respected there's a point at which you realize everybody's just really good, and they're not gonna fall for like a 4-bet bluff or whatever, and so I don't think anybody really felt like there was any need to do that and those kinds of theatrics, and everybody was playing pretty straight up. I mean, not that people weren't bluffing, but there wasn't the normal craziness, the normal, I'm going to get in there with the 5 deuce or something and try to win the pot later. So it was very old school. It was a game where you understood that the 3 bets didn't necessarily have to mean anything, but you knew when they were placed. Like if somebody was 3-betting you after you opened in first position, it was just a game where you could totally give them credit. Which was much like my starting table yesterday, actually, in the main event, which I loved. But it was really cool because I haven't, it used to be back in the day that outside of the World Series of Poker, if you went and played in like a 10K event, it was like the same 70 people. So I was always playing with those guys. So it was really cool to get to play with everybody again. It was really awesome. I loved it.
Well, on that note, you do a lot of other activities outside of poker. You were on Celebrity Apprentice, which I'd love to hear how that came about.
Yeah, that was a long story, but I'll tell you.
Okay. And you do a lot of other charity events and things. The game has evolved so much in such little time. When you come back to, say, the World Series this year, do you feel ever like, wow, this is such a different game now? And do you ever feel like you need to readjust?
Well, I definitely need to readjust, but I don't feel like that because I actually keep up with the game. So, definitely a very different game. Definitely have to react. But the way that I've always looked at poker is I never go to a table with a very specific strategy anyway. My game's really about trying to figure out what people are doing at the table and then react to it well. So, you only have to show me that you put the 4th bet in with, 10-7 one time, and I'm good to go, and then I know that I have to now react to you. But I teach the WSOP academies, and that actually really helps me keep up with the game really well. So, when you're having to explain conceptually to people how you're supposed to play in sort of any situation, because you're not just taking situational poker and teaching them situational poker. It really gets you thinking about like when people are playing, X way, what your reaction should be. When people are playing like this, what should your reaction be? Starting to think about through those kinds of poker concepts, and that's been extremely helpful for me actually in keeping up. And obviously I've had a very good year this year. I don't play a lot of no limit tournaments at the WSOP, so I can't really speak to that. But obviously the LAPC, I made a nice deep run in that, and then the heads up I did well in. So, I feel like my no limit game has kept up pretty well. Okay. It's never been my number 1 best game. So at the World Series, I play out mostly the 5 p.m. tournaments.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So you are known as one of the biggest evangelists for women in poker. And 2010 is certainly what some would refer to as, and it really can't be argued.
I got to start the ball rolling.
Kind of like
really
the
cool.
women in poker, or the year of the woman.
Well,
in poker,
women did really well this spring. So
right.
I started off with the heads up. Then Vanessa Selps won Mohegan Sun, and then Liv Borie won EPT. So that was really nice. I mean, one of the things that people always say, when they say, oh, women aren't good, is, well, that's a really unfair statement because you can't just look at, results in terms of the number of wins across like WPTs or final tables or things like that. You have to understand women tend to represent about 3% of the field. So that's a lot to, ask.
Now, do you think that women as a whole are getting much better and competing on similar
No, but I don't think men as a whole are getting much better in this sense.
Okay.
I think that overall the level of the game has improved, and women have improved along with it. So women are improving, I think, at the same rate as men are. The majority of the women still aren't very good, but the majority of men still aren't very good either in that sense. So, you have a certain number of women that are playing, and some small percentage of those people are going to become very, very good players. And the rest of them are going to be playing recreationally. They're not going to be looking to take the game seriously, but it's the exact same thing for the men. You have a very large number of men that are playing. Some small percentage of them become very good pros that are going to have a lot of longevity. And then you have a lot of people who are playing recreationally who don't necessarily want to be good at the game. They just want to go out and have fun. And I think that's true for the women too. The women that do choose to make this a profession, though, I think on the whole tend to be better than the average person, the average man who makes this a profession. And I think the reason why is that there's so many barriers to entry for women to do it. So in order for a woman to want to become a pro, I think that she has to really want it, and she has to really feel like she's going to be good at it, and really have a more of a passion for the game than the average guy who's going to become a pro, because there's just so many barriers to entry for a woman to do this. I mean, just in terms of like even societal, like, you do what, huh? Right. I mean, It's easier for a dude to be like, I play poker, and people are like, oh, that's so cool. And when women do it, they're like, so. So when you look at the women who are top in the game, I think that you see that they just have tremendous amount of success. So Vanessa Selfs is obviously one of those examples. Great heads-up player, great no-limit player. I mean, she's very good at pot limit. Omaha, like, she's just really good. Obviously, Vanessa Russo had an amazing year last year in 2009. Jennifer Harmon, she's been doing great for 20 years in the game. She's just been around forever and done really well. I mean, there's a whole list. Obviously, Kathy Liebert, who's I think number 1 on the money list, right? And she's obviously very good and has committed her life to poker. And I think that, and then obviously Annette's coming up. You've got a really good group of women who are coming up. You've got Annette is coming up, and then Melanie Wiesner. Is her last name Wiesner?
I don't even know.
She plays $500 sit and goes online. Apparently, she's extremely successful. So she's sort of an up and comer. Lauren Kling.
Is she the girl that I've been seeing a lot
she's
in like the really big buy-in events? I saw her playing the 10K heads up. I saw her in the 25K six.
Yes, and she got very deep in those.
Okay,
and she's very good. She's very successful.
I've heard about her.
So she's a real up and comer. Lauren Kling. She's an up and comer. I know she's extremely successful online. So you've got a really good group of people coming up behind sort of my generation right now, which is really awesome. Like, I love that there's some young women who are coming into the game now to continue to carry the torch for all of us.
So what can we expect to see from you next? We've seen you, at a lot of final tables in poker. We've seen you on NBC Primetime with Celebrity Apprentice. What other projects do you have in the works, and where else can we expect to see you?
Well, so I'm going to start doing something. I'm going to start a web show in the fall, which is going to be talk. It's not going to actually be poker directed. It's going to be about the other things that I'm interested in.
I'm not ready to lose my job yet as hosting this show.
Because I'm actually interested in a lot of stuff that's outside of poker.
Okay.
So it's going to be a web show that's going to be like sort of like a Charlie Rose kind of thing that I'm going to do in conjunction with Jason Calacanis. So he has Mahalo Studios. They do This Week in Startups, which is a show that I was on.
Twist.
Yep, exactly. I was on that. And then they also do a show called the Kevin Pollak Chat Show. And so obviously This Week in Startups is about people who are entrepreneurs starting up businesses. And then the Kevin Pollak Talk Show is much more entertainment based. So I was going on sort of for two different purposes. Love doing both of them. I guess they liked me as a guest. And we started to talk to them in conjunction with the Wicked PR guys, who we love, the Coolies, yay, and Chops. Hey, Chops. Love them. Anyway, we started to talk to Jason and Mahalo Studios about possibly having me do my own show. And so we've got an agreement, and we're going to be starting in the fall.
Awesome.
So I'm pretty excited about that. So that will be a web show. And it will be fun for me because I'll be able to talk about things that don't have to do with poker, that are the other things that I'm really deeply interested in. So I think that will be really cool. I've got a project coming up that you'll find out about in a few months, but I can't talk about it.
Okay.
Just a tease. But other than that, just playing poker, continuing to work with UB, hanging out with my family. I need some time off after the World Series.
Don't we
badly.
all? Absolutely.
I've got a strategy book that should be done at the end of this summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, poker strategy.
Wow, nice.
Oh, and then the World Series, the Poker Academy online
Which
launched.
just launched
Just
this
launched.
week, I understand.
This on Tuesday.
Okay.
So that is a full online training course. It's different than, it's really different than the training courses that are out there, which are, a lot of sort of videos of, sort of Camtasia videos, screen capture videos of people playing. This is not, this course is not for someone who's a seasoned professional. This is for all of the other people where, those kinds of like the card runners kinds of places aren't really accessible to them because you're just watching people sort of play at this high level and you don't necessarily have the basic concepts. And I think those sites are awesome. I'm not knocking them, but they're not for beginners. And this is much more for your beginner to intermediate player, and it's a full course where you get certified from start to finish. I'm one of the instructors. Mark Gregorich, who's great, is one of the instructors. Mark Safe, Greg Raymer.
Awesome.
So I'm pretty excited about that.
That sounds exciting. There's definitely not enough poker training for the
average entry level.
players.
You have all these what's the one? There's that, and then there's
Poker X Factor.
Poker X Factor is that one, and then there's a few of those out there, but they're all for advanced players.
Right.
So this is much more of an entry level for people and much more accessible. So obviously that's in conjunction with the WSOP brand. So I think it's great. I love any association that I have with the WSOP brand. Obviously it's the poker brand. So I'm excited about that. But I'm very excited about my strategy book.
Okay, well we're looking forward to that, and maybe when you get it, you can send me a copy and I can talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
For sure.
Well, Annie, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure to sit down and talk to you for a little bit.
Thanks.
And best of luck in the rest of the year. And
Cool.
Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Now I can rescue my children from their candy.
Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Under the Gun. Remember, it's a very important week, so anything you can do to help out the online poker community. Personally, I'm not a big fan of online casinos, but I do think that online poker should be legal, not just because I'm a poker player. I know everybody has their sort of their motivations. Steve Wynn does not want online poker to be legalized. One of the owners of Commerce that spoke does not want it. Obviously, the owners of the online sites do and the online players do. It's interesting to see that everyone has such, biased opinions based on their own personal incentives or motivations. But ultimately, I think it's our freedom to play poker if we so want to, just like it's our freedom to go buy a lottery ticket if that is available in the state that you live in. Anyway, thanks again for tuning in. I'm over 900 followers on Twitter now. So I said once I hit 1,000 followers, I will randomly select one person for a poker lesson. So if you're interested in that, follow me on Twitter at Jon Friedberg. And of course, you can follow the show as well at Under the Gun TV. And have a great week. I'll see you guys next week.